All right, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges for any English learner. How do you get fluent when you don't have anyone to practice with? It feels impossible, right? Well, what if I told you there's a powerful technique that completely changes the game?
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? It feels like a catch-22. You know you need to speak more to improve, but you don't have a speaking partner. It's a really frustrating loop to be stuck in, but I promise there is a way to break out of it.
And look, this is the fundamental truth. There's just no getting around it. To actually get better at speaking, you have to, speak. It sounds almost too obvious, but it's the very obstacle we're here to figure out how to get over.
So what do most of us do? We try to find workarounds. We bury ourselves in grammar books, we memorize rules, or we just listen to hours and hours of English. And hey, those things are definitely helpful, but they are not the same thing as practicing speaking. They're a supplement, not a substitute.
So, what is the solution then? Well, it's a super effective method called the imitation technique. It's specifically designed to let you practice speaking, build real fluency, and sharpen your communication skills all by yourself.
So what is this thing exactly? It's actually really simple, but it works like a charm. You just listen to a native speaker. Maybe they're telling a story or giving a little speech. Then your job is to retell that same story, get the same ideas across, but using your own words.
Now, this is a really important point. This is not just shadowing or, repeating words like a parrot to work on your accent. This is way deeper than that. It's about understanding ideas and then figuring out how to express them yourself. That's the real skill in any conversation.
Let's walk through a really quick example so you can see what I mean. Imagine you hear a native speaker telling a little story from their childhood, and it starts like this. It's in the first person from their point of view. Now, it's your turn to retell it.
And here's what you do. You retell the story, but from a third-person perspective. See what happened there? I became he, my turned into his, and us changed to them. You're actively changing the grammar to get the same message across. This is active, powerful practice, not just mindless repetition.
Okay, so you get the what. Now let's dive into the how. The absolute best way to do this is with an approach I like to call easy to hard imitation.
The whole idea is based on something called progressive training. It's what athletes and musicians do all the time. You don't walk into a gym and try to lift the heaviest weight on day one, right? No, you start with something you can handle and you slowly, gradually increase the difficulty. That's what forces you to get stronger.
So here's what that looks like. First, you start small. Just listen to a short phrase, hit pause, and retell that one little bit. Easy. Once you're comfortable with that, you go bigger. Try retelling a couple of sentences at a time. And then finally, you go all in. You listen to the entire story or speech, and then you try to deliver the whole thing from start to finish on your own.
So why is this method just so darn effective? Let's get into the why of it all, because the benefits are pretty amazing, and they go way beyond just getting more talking time in.
See, when you're consistently using the imitation technique, you're doing so much more than just talking. You're actually absorbing correct sentence structures. You're learning new vocabulary and idioms in a natural context. And, most importantly, you're training your brain to organize and express your thoughts clearly in English.
Now, this usually brings up a really good question. You might be thinking, wait a minute, if I'm not studying from a grammar book, how am I actually learning the rules? And this, my friend, is where the real magic happens.
The answer is a fascinating psychological concept called implicit learning. Basically, it's the process where your brain picks up on patterns and rules just by being exposed to them and using them, all without you even being aware that you're learning. It's learning on autopilot.
And the absolute perfect example of this. Just think about how you learned your first language when you were a little kid. You didn't sit down with grammar flashcards, right? Of course not. You just listened, you imitated, and you focused on getting your message across. The grammar just sort of happened naturally.
So here's the fundamental difference. Traditional study puts all the focus on analyzing the rules of the language. The imitation technique, on the other hand, puts the focus on the actual point of language, which is understanding a message and expressing it.
And that is the key takeaway here. You are absolutely still learning and reinforcing correct grammar, I would argue even more effectively, because your brain is doing it in the background while your conscious mind is focused on the real job of communication. It feels less like studying and way more like actually using the language.
So really, the only question left is, where are you going to start? Find a short podcast clip, a TED Talk, any little speech you find interesting, and just give it a shot. So tell me, what's the first story you're going to try to retell?